Um, Helen, I don't know. I see myself now blurred. I don't know whether you see the same or whether it's only on my screen.
You are appearing to be blurred. That should
And
be in this video settings. Normally you can
yeah,
unblur.
but
There you are.
yeah. Okay. Good. Are we have all the
Yes.
people been moved to the meeting room? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's go. A warm welcome and good morning to everyone. I'm happy to welcome you to workshop number 4, Building Networks for Young Entrepreneurs. I'm happy to see that so many members of the group are online with us today. As the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Academy starts into a new school year, if I may say so. The European Commission, DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion, is running the YEPA in cooperation with OECD. And we are very happy to join forces to go deeper when analyzing and formulating recommendations about which support is needed to make young people succeed. The workshop is hosted by Youth Business International, so I'm pleased to welcome Anita Thiessen. But before it's her turn, I pass the floor to Jonathan Potter from the OECD. And I'm looking forward very much to the interesting presentations and discussions ahead of us over the next few hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Cornelia. Thanks very much. And pleasure to be here with everybody. Nice to see you all again. You know about the YEPA and its purpose. What we're aiming to do is to strengthen youth entrepreneurship policies, better youth entrepreneurship policies across the EU member states at national, regional, local level, entrepreneurship. So, you know, we need to hear about what are the barriers that young people are facing in entrepreneurship. And we've set up here an exchange between policymakers, experts who've done research on the topic, and the youth entrepreneurs themselves. And what we're trying to get to is a sort of common understanding of what works in youth entrepreneurship policy. So you remember there are 6 online workshops. This is the 4th one. And then next year we'll have an in-person event as well. So you're invited to...
It's a bit low. I hope you hear me correctly, or?
Yes, it sounds good.
Okay, good, thanks. Okay, so I was saying just hello, everybody. Thanks, David, for the introduction. And indeed, I'm happy to moderate this session of this new workshop for the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Academy, which is a joint endeavor with with the OECD. And it's important for us, I mean, as part of our policy to support inclusive entrepreneurship. So young entrepreneurship has been identified as one important thing. And here, I mean, today the workshop, I mean, the topic was your choice, basically, as part of this group. And we've had a series since last week. Last week we had another one, for example, on role models. So now this one is more about networks. And I would like now to introduce my panelists. And as you will see, we have with us quite a variety of networks. So we heard before Eva with a network of entrepreneurs but how these networks can help young entrepreneurs, even if they're just not made of young entrepreneurs. So indeed, I've got joining me Francisca, who just somehow started to introduce herself, but I will ask her to do more. So from the I'll try to pronounce it correctly, Jugendgründet. Okay, then we have Simone Chirou from Reuse and Sarah Simon, should I say Simon or Simone? I don't know, from Youth Business Spain. So thanks to all of you for joining us. And I will start by asking you to introduce yourself, your network. So this panel is about how to create and operate networks that can help also those young entrepreneurs. And as I said, you have quite different profiles. So could you just, each of you, introduce yourself, explain a bit what is your organizations doing? Simone, maybe.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having Reuse as part of this very interesting workshop. My name is Simone Schiru, and I work for the EU's largest network of social enterprises active in reuse, repair, and recycling, Reuse. As such, we represent social entrepreneurship actors that foster social inclusion via their circular economy activities. Our network secretariat is based in Brussels, Belgium. And our members specifically prioritize reuse and repair because they are not only highly circular activities, more than recycling, but also because they become vehicles for social inclusion and job creation potential. Reuse and repair becomes ways to promote skill development, including for the green jobs, gain visibility, expand their network. For instance, that can be relevant to apply together for EU funding, but also present their social innovations in different fora like webinars, but also in-person conferences and so forth. And last but not least, joining a network like Reuse and many others also become an opportunity to engage in regular discussions around policy files, in our case, EU policy files, and that becomes an opportunity to share relevant information from the national level, being up to date on EU relevant funding and other resources opportunities.
In Europe is an analysis with the GIM, with the Global Entrepreneurship Monitoring System, about the figures about youth people entrepreneur in Spain. And we realize that 30% of the youth people see opportunities to start businesses idea, but just 8% of the people decide to working in develop this business idea. And I think that is a very important number to have in mind about all the effort we are trying to do together in this YEPA group, because the problem we are facing in Spain and probably most of the college in other countries is that the young people, they are not starting business idea. It's just a few population of the youth people who decide finally start a business idea. In this analysis we did, we also realized that 60% of the youth people think that
yeah. So the students, some students come to us on their own, but for the most part, a teacher is bringing our program into their classroom, so everybody has to take part in it, whether they like it or not. And I think this is of great advantage and some kind of necessity in this type of education, especially in Germany, for many people have nothing to do with entrepreneurship, have never thought about starting their own business, and couldn't imagine doing it. But when they have to take some time of their life within the classroom and actually think about it and ask themselves, okay, this is now about me, this is about my idea, they start to catch fire and get interested in competition. Of course, it's the network with the other participants from different schools, different cities within Germany. We're trying to bring them together and not seeing the other students as competitors, but also as potential partners, friends, people they can learn from. And thirdly, networks between the students and our jury. For this is a competition, and we're having a jury which we're trying to have as diverse as possible. There are many people from the startup world in this, founders, VCs, investors of different levels, but also executives from companies like Porsche, McKinsey, and so on. And they are either they're of course in a way judging the ideas the students are bringing to them, but the students. So they are job is it to empower the students and to help them learn. So it's not like they have to say, they shouldn't say, oh, this idea isn't good, so forget it, but they are trying to tell them what are the key factors that might need improving, what's already good and what's bad. And this fosters networks between the jurors and the students. And we often see that students are later on getting back to the people, the jury. Job is it to empower the students and to help them learn. So it's not like they have to say, they shouldn't say, oh, this idea isn't good, so forget it, but they are trying to tell them what are the key factors that might need improving, what's already good and what's bad. And this fosters networks between the jurors and the students. And we often see that students are later on getting back to the people, the jury. Ooh, sorry, this was my dog. One moment. I'm sorry. We're trying to get them to, and they are getting to know each other and reconnecting later on in life. I have to get to him, so he will bark a little bit. Maybe I can get back to you later. Sorry.
Okay, thanks a lot. Don't worry. It was a nice illustration as well of the various types of networks which had been presented by Hélène. So from the more private to the more professional. So now I'll turn to Simone. Simone, you explained a bit already what reuse is about, how it works, and how can you engage with the youth? Because I mean, it's not your main focus, but still, how do you make sure that what you do is also relevant and accessible for them?
Yes, many social enterprises in our sectors have very long traditions, some going back to over 70 years. So they were set up in times that are very different from today, and in many ways they might be working in the same ways ever since, in collecting items, in sorting them, selling them in secondhand stores. So attracting young people goes beyond intergenerational representation for social enterprises, but it is also a means that ensure that they adapt to the times by listening to the younger generations. In the case of reuse, this is especially relevant because digitalization and circular economy are becoming more central topics that are especially embraced by the younger generations. So it is particularly important to have them on board because they're also a resource. So concretely, one important way to achieve this is to ensure that young people are involved in governance positions. Across our membership, we have several examples. We have people in their early 30s that are directing national networks of circular social enterprises, or they're holding managerial positions in secondhand stores, or in the reuse and preparation for reuse centers. The reuse board also comprises members directors that are in their early 30s, so they bring a different perspective from other directors or representatives that might be from different generations. And I should also say that all these examples that I have in mind particularly involve young women in social enterprises. So it's also important for networks and social enterprises in general to keep in mind that intersectionality is important to ensure youth representativeness, but of course inclusiveness in general. Another aspect that it's very important to remain relevant to young entrepreneurs is to have affordable membership fees. Since Reuse works with organization, we don't have age as a specific criteria. It would be hard to assess. But that being said, affordable membership fees ensure that financial obstacles that can be particularly relevant to young people are removed or diminished at least. I can also share more information about the Reuse membership fees in the chat. From a network standpoint, they're quite low. Another element to keep into account is that networks need to provide services that are relevant to the youth. I mentioned some of them previously. In general, they have to be opportunities for young people and young entrepreneurs to present and discuss their own innovations, meet in person as well as online. The hybrid aspect is also very important to ensure accessibility. As Helen was saying earlier, on behalf of the OECD, it's a mutual relationship, and young people can also have a lot to give. So it's important that they're provided opportunities to meet with representatives that, for instance, come from older generations, because they also share their own resources, but at the same time, they also have a very important and relevant ideas that deserve a space to gain visibility. So a network has to take that into account. And lastly, there could be also more innovative ways to involve young entrepreneurs or even just young people that then can become a way to actually get them closer to entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship in the case of reuse. So for instance, our member from Armenia called ISSD set up a youth green council in one community to give them a seat at the table in decision making. Our Belgian member Kringwinkel in Antwerp gave young people the responsibility to design their marketing campaign, so they contributed to very effective and appealing visuals in promoting their secondhand stores. And lastly, we have examples from Italy and Croatia where our social enterprises have contacted influencers, because it's also important to reach young people where they are, and that also includes social media. So these are some of the ways that networks can remain relevant and inclusive of young people.
Okay, thanks a lot. Plenty of good ideas shared. Also some answers for Tom's questions earlier, some inspiration at least. So finally, again, for the second round of questions, turning to Sarah. So for the youth business network, you explained your network of networks. I mean, how can you mobilize your network, your support organizations to mobilize young people? And what do you see as good strategies to foster collaboration among young entrepreneurs across your network?
As I mentioned before, it's a challenge to us that young people decide to start businesses. And we always work with the idea that we just want that all the young people who really want to do it have the resources and the knowledge and the network to do it. It's like maybe starting a business is not the best solution to everyone, to all the young people, but who decide to do it, provide them the resources and the network and everything they need to do it. So what we are doing is this local partner, this local organization member of Youth Business Spain are connected with their ecosystem, and we support them in their relationship, also in the schools, in the high school, with the university, in national and in local level, to have this kind of program and initiative to approach them about this, as Francisca mentioned before, to provide them the idea of start a businesses if they have the spirit to do it is also a possibility, and encourage them to be in contact with this existing network that could help them in this hard way. So that is one of the things we are working to connect with the users. And also what it's working in this 10 year, we have tested several initiatives, but the thing it's working best is that, as you have Helen mentioned, build this network in parallel to other programs. We have a very strong mentoring program and training program, and what is really working to build this network between the youth entrepreneurs is be part of the other existing program. So they be in touch with other people like them from other region of Spain, and they have the opportunities to share the program in training session, in speed session and in other spaces that we try to generate to provide the opportunity to be in contact with others that share the same problems and challenge that they are facing.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. And you ensured the transition to the last round of questions. I see we're running a bit late, so maybe I will ask you to be very synthetic for the last question, which is an important one. I wanted to ask you about exactly this policy support, which you just mentioned a bit, Sarah. So what do you think would be most relevant so that we support the development that also support young entrepreneurs? Maybe 1, 2 main thoughts quickly. One starts. Sarah, you just did it. Maybe you carry on. Yeah.
Okay. I think here, in our perspective, as this network of organizations supporting people, I think that maybe just with a small policy idea, like there are many grants to employment. Here in Spain, there are many policies to help the young people get a job. And maybe if just 10% of the grants destinated to this employment could be destinated to self-employment and entrepreneurship, that could be a good beginning, I think. And having in mind that it's not just giving them directly the money, because, for example, in Catalonia, they have a program that the people in youth guarantee, they receive 50,000 euros if they start a business, like they declare they are going to start a business, but they have not support in this way. And this business 1 year later are closed. So it's not that the people start the businesses and give them the money to start the business. It's to guarantee a scale and consolidate the business idea. And of course, everyone needs a network that supports them, but the young people more than probably other collective.
Okay, thanks a lot. Clear message. Who wants to carry on? Simone, I move backwards.
Happy to. Yes, I think of 2 main points. The first one is operational funding for networks. We need structural support of networks both at the EU and national level. Otherwise, they will not be able to offer quality and stable, decent jobs, and they would have to rely on short-term projects. This would turn young people away from joining networks if there aren't good opportunities. At the EU level, we're likely to have the employment and social innovation strand that support EU social economy networks particularly, but at the national one, we observe a dramatic lack of this support. And it is particularly important for social entrepreneurship because networks cannot ask for membership fees that are too high. And the second point is on areas that concern Erasmus+. There are encouraging initiatives under Erasmus+ that can support a bottom-up approach where young entrepreneurs get closer to these missions and also to early career opportunities. We can think of Erasmus traineeships, but also the European Solidarity Corps. They can be improved in making sure that they have the enough visibility, especially for people that might be away from discussions around EU initiatives. And this is also big responsibility on national policymakers, but also to make sure that these initiatives are stable enough, that they provide enough support that can involve young people from all sorts of social economic backgrounds. And finally, I agree with what was mentioned earlier on education. We also need curricular programs that embrace entrepreneurship, including green and social entrepreneurship.
Okay, thanks a lot. I mean, I hope at least at EU level, indeed, we're working in that direction, and Erasmus has become much more inclusive than it was in the past. I guess it was clear in this MFF in particular. And maybe to flag, because also it was a question from Raffaele, the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, which is not strictly speaking part of Erasmus, by the way, is also an interesting tool to build your networks internationally. Francesca, finally.
thank you. Yeah, I would support everything that has been said by Simone and Sarah previously, especially the last point made by Simone with concerning the curricula. I am working at the absolute baseline of entrepreneurship education, and I think in order to make people start their own businesses more, the first things to know about these possibilities. And I think therefore we have to implement entrepreneurship education, the topics into a curricula in schools, in mandatory. Within schools, we are reaching everybody. Everybody has to go to school when they're teenagers, and so everybody comes in contact with it. And this is the first step. Only if you don't know about the possibilities, all the other programs are kind of not reachable, for they're not searching for them, and they're not looking for them. So I would really wish for entrepreneurship being implemented into curricula nationwide in Germany, and of course EU-wide. Yeah. And I think, to come back to a question within the chat, I also think that entrepreneurship is a great way to help young people navigate the challenges of today, for their feeling and seeing that they're not victims, but they can actually do something themselves about the situations they're in, and they're able to change things. So this is also, in my eyes, really important to strengthen societies, strengthen democracies. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks to all for this very rich discussion. I know we totally encroached on the break already, but I would still like to give the opportunity to one or two people to come in with questions, because we have very interesting panelists. Or you're just all really willing to get a small break? I don't see any hands up. No? Okay, I think everybody's longing for a break. Thanks really a lot to the three of you for this very nice discussion. And I'll pass back the floor to David, I guess.
Great, thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of the panelists. That was a really fascinating discussion. So thank you for joining us and for sharing your experiences and offering lessons and ideas about what we can do better in the future. It was good to see there was discussion in the chat as well. So that's always good to see. And we'll pick up these points later on in the breakout sessions. But as Brigitte said, why don't we take a break? We'll take a 5 or 6 minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll learn more about YBI, and then we'll go into our discussion sessions. So thanks again. Get up and stretch, and I'll see you in 5.
everybody. As it's been mentioned, my name is Victoria Edwards. I'm the Head of Membership at Youth Business International, and I've spent the last 16 years working in educational organisations and international networks that focus on empowering young people to fulfil their ambitions. So I'm very pleased to join you here today and to contribute to these important discussions. Next slide, hopefully it's working. Excellent. So Youth Business International, or YBI as we call it, is the only organisation supporting youth entrepreneurship worldwide. So this gives us a unique global perspective. We lead a global network of 64 entrepreneurship support organisations, and these are our network members. So I'm also pleased that we've been joined by one of them today in the earlier panel discussion, so Youth Business Spain, led by Sarah Simon, one of our key European members. And our members are based in 47 countries. We bring them together to connect, collaborate, and exchange ideas, knowledge, and insights to better support young entrepreneurs. We share a mission with our members of supporting young people aged 18 to 35 to start, scale, and sustain businesses, specifically focusing on those from underserved backgrounds who have faced more barriers, and also whose businesses have positive social and green environmental impact. Together, we develop and scale the most effective solutions and support for young entrepreneurs. And by harnessing that network's expertise and experience, we enable our members to deliver the best localized solutions for supporting young entrepreneurs in their local contexts. So you can see here the main pillars of YBI's strategy to give you a bit of an illustration of our ambitions and our priorities. Our goal is to create 1 million jobs through supporting the startup and growth of 250,000 youth-led businesses worldwide through our global network of members. Our strategy to achieve this consists of these 4 pillars that you can see here on the screen. So firstly, to accelerate more impact for more young people, we work with our global network of members to implement excellence in youth entrepreneurship programming. With our members, we co-create and refine tailored support programs for young entrepreneurs. YBI aims to inspire more inclusive and responsible youth-led businesses focused on solving social, economic, and environmental programs. We work with our members, partners, and external experts to develop and deliver tools and resources to support young, green, and social entrepreneurs and to encourage ESG practices in our youth-led businesses. Our global network is continuously growing and diversifying, and we're increasing opportunities for our members to connect and collaborate. And then finally, we are advocating for increased investment in support of youth entrepreneurship on a global stage, seeking to influence policies that make entrepreneurship more accessible to all young people. Our members. So our members are enterprise support organisations, as I've mentioned, and they support youth-led businesses within their programmes. They really are wonderful organisations that share our commitment and passion to support young entrepreneurs, which is what helps us to facilitate a really vibrant network. Our members are committed to a responsible business agenda, whether that's through supporting social and green entrepreneurs or inclusive entrepreneurship support. Our member support services include, but are not limited to, skills training, mentoring, access to finance support, and other business development services. It's really important to us to emphasise the way that we manage and facilitate our network, because this is something that we strongly believe is key to our success, and in turn it enables our members to better support their young entrepreneurs. Our network is based on the principles of connection, collaboration, and content. And I'll explain a little bit what we mean by those. So by connecting our members regionally and globally, we facilitate the exchange of ideas, knowledge, and insights, creating the opportunity for new ideas and solutions to emerge. Some examples of the way we facilitate this include our member learning exchange scheme, our communities of practice, and our global summit, which is coming up in a few weeks' time. And then we really believe, and from our experience, that through meaningful connection comes collaboration and the co-creation of content to develop and scale the most effective solutions to critical challenges facing young entrepreneurs. Our members then get access to this content, which can include things like toolkits and trainings to improve the quality of their support offers for young entrepreneurs and improves outcomes for young entrepreneurs. Our content is built on the very diverse experience and expertise of our members from all around the world, and it's piloted and refined by our member organisations. So this really ensures that it is relevant and it can be applicable across different regional and country contexts. So here are some of the ways that we enable our members to connect and collaborate across our network, and I'll explain a little bit what each of these is. So our Member Learning Exchange Scheme, this was a new initiative that we ran for the first time last year, and the purpose of the scheme is to foster peer-to-peer connection, learning and collaboration internationally between YBI members through funded study visits. So last time 20 members took part in the first edition of this, and they developed their own learning objectives, which included things such as developing digital platforms, exploring finance and mentoring services, supporting social and green entrepreneurs, and combining enterprise support with grant funding, and then also embedding inclusivity within services. And some of the varied exchange outcomes have resulted in many new and strengthened relationships that then have the potential to lead to long-term developments. And we're monitoring the outcomes of this first exchange scheme over the coming months. And we're noticing that members are definitely continuing to support each other and exchange knowledge many months after the visits have taken place. Another method that we use is our communities of practice. So this brings together YBI members from a specific thematic program or region for 2 to 3 days of workshops and co-creation sessions, working on solutions to particular common challenges, for example, access to finance for young entrepreneurs. And then we also have our bootcamp. And again, this was something we ran for the first time recently. The first one took place in June this year. And it was a direct offer to our young entrepreneurs. So young entrepreneurs that have been supported by our members from all over the world. We selected 30 of them through a competitive process, selecting young entrepreneurs who had high growth potential businesses focusing on with green and social outcomes. And they were selected to attend a 5-day bootcamp in London, which the agenda of the bootcamp, the content focused on delivering transformational learning experiences and building global business relationships. So there's a lot of amazing peer-to-peer connection and relationships that were made that we saw at that bootcamp that are then continuing to have impact for those young entrepreneurs. Participants learn from experts about developing their entrepreneurial growth mindset, refining their pitch skills and mastering effective leadership, all whilst networking with peers and business leaders to form lasting and supportive relationships. And then finally, I wanted to touch upon our Global Youth Entrepreneurship Summit. So every 2 years, we bring together our whole global network of members, young entrepreneurs and international entrepreneurship experts and practitioners for 3 days of networking, learning and collaboration at our Global Summit event. The next summit is taking place in Nairobi, Kenya, in a few weeks' time. And sessions will cover themes of responsible entrepreneurship, innovative business and diverse support. So here are some examples of our current co-developed content, and it's, oh, apologies, I've skipped one slides too far. Here are some examples of our current co-developed content. And this content really evolves over time as we work with our members to respond to different issues. So this really is a snapshot of some of the content that we are currently sharing across our network. So I'll explain some of these. First, the Social and Green Entrepreneurship Toolkit. So this is a set of practical tools and resources for enterprise support organisations that want to start or improve their support for social and green entrepreneurs. The tools address 6 key areas of entrepreneur and enterprise development. So the first is personal development and self-knowledge. Then there is business and impact ideation, the business model, business validation, legal governance and finance, and impact measurement and growth. I'd like to speak about the inclusivity toolkit next. I understand there's been some discussion today around the importance of inclusivity, and our inclusivity toolkit was co-created with YBI members to help enterprise support organisations ensure that their outreach, support and services are inclusive to all entrepreneurs. So it's really a guide for ESOs to identify inclusion and diversity priorities and then reflect on how their programs and services can be more inclusive. So the co-creation and piloting included 9 YBI members from all over the world, so Mongolia, Mozambique, Turkey, Italy, Spain, Bolivia, Kenya, Palestine, and Bangladesh. It was then further tested with some additional members so that it was really refined, and we know that this toolkit can work in a wide variety of contexts. And then since it's been rolled out across our network, ESOs are using the toolkit to create their own inclusivity commitments and pathways that are relevant to their own contexts. And then we've continued to work with our members to develop additional resources to support specific groups facing barriers to inclusion. So these additional resources include a focus on gender, disability, Black entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs from migrant and refugee backgrounds, which is currently in development. Some of our other resources that you can see here on the screen include growth and performance skills training. So this is a train the trainer curriculum that focuses upon soft skills to improve the quality and impact of the support provided to entrepreneurs, because we recognize that the investment in the individual, the young entrepreneur themselves, their own skill set is really important. It's not just all about have they got a good. We have a very holistic model that looks at the individual as well as the business, and then the enabling environment as well. We have a sustainability toolkit. So this is a set of, again, practical and easy to use tools and guidelines which help entrepreneurs develop sustainable businesses from the outset. So it helps entrepreneurs understand what sustainability is, why it is important, and how it can help their business. And then entrepreneurs are supported to set a sustainability vision, strategy, and goals, and then they can translate that to their day-to-day practices. And then the final two that I'll touch upon are our financial health model. So this has again been developed with members, a theory of change that visualizes how young entrepreneurs can be supported at the individual, business, and ecosystem levels to achieve financial health. And I've already mentioned that holistic approach, and that again is shown as really important through our research and evidence that we've gathered in the financial health model. So those 3 pathways that have been identified as key to supporting financial health are the enabling environment, business development, and personal development. And then finally, our High Flyers guidelines. So this is an experience-informed set of tools and resources for ESOs to support young entrepreneurs with high growth potential businesses to scale and grow and create jobs. And this covers 6 areas, which are target group identification, outreach and selection, training and knowledge building, access to finance, mentoring, fostering a supportive entrepreneurship ecosystem, and then monitoring, evaluation, and learning. That gives you a flavour of the solutions that we create with our members to deliver better outcomes for young entrepreneurs. And then finally, I'd like to talk about partnering with YBI. So in thinking about how governments and other actors can support this work, we've come up with some suggestions under 2 areas. So firstly, direct support to YBI. This could be through funding and financial support. So governments could provide financial support to YBI through grants, subsidies, or match funds to enhance YBI's capacity to support young entrepreneurs. Governments could establish public-private partnerships to leverage private sector involvement and pool resources. Support could also come through capacity building and training. So this could come through co-creation of tools and resources with YBI to equip young entrepreneurs with the necessary skills. Governments can help connect experienced business leaders with young entrepreneurs through YBI members' mentoring initiatives. And then there's also facilitating access to finance. So governments can fund microfinance programs facilitated by YBI, such as our revolving loan fund, ensuring young entrepreneurs have access to affordable financing solutions. And then the other area is collaborating with YBI to create an enabling environment for young entrepreneurs. So within policy development and advocacy, governments can work with YBI to create and implement policies that foster youth entrepreneurship. So this could include reducing barriers to starting businesses, providing tax incentives, and ensuring access to finance. Governments can collaborate with YBI on advocacy campaigns to promote the importance of youth entrepreneurship, so influencing public opinion and encouraging more young people to consider entrepreneurship as a career path. This can also be used to raise the awareness of support initiatives available for young entrepreneurs and influence policy at a local and national level. And then in terms of research and data sharing, governments could collaborate with YBI to conduct research on youth entrepreneurship, identifying key challenges, opportunities, and trends. And this data can help in shaping more effective policies and support programs. And then the final thing that I'd like to share today is that next month we will be launching our global policy framework, exploring the policies and trends that impact youth entrepreneurship, so what works and what doesn't. We hope that this framework will provide a useful resource for governments around the world to improve their youth entrepreneurship policies, and we're keen to advise how to put our recommendations into practice. And that brings me to a close, and very welcome to take any questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Victoria. That was great. It's good to see all of the different activities and to compare and contrast them with some of the earlier cases where we saw, the different types of activities that these networks are engaged in. There's a lot of similarities and also some differences. So that's great. And we also look forward to your new policy framework. Perhaps there'll be opportunities to discuss that with the YEPA group in the future. So we can open the floor for some questions now. There's been quite good discussion so far throughout the workshop, and so we can take a few questions for Victoria. And I see Anita is still here, so she can also contribute. Please raise your hand, or you can just speak up. There's a question in the chat from Ruben. He asks, how is the ambition level determined? Is it million jobs through 250,000 companies?
Perhaps I can take that one because I was involved in the strategy development. Twice a year, we get impact data from our network. We have a range of metrics, but they cover businesses started and grown, number of young people supported, number of jobs created, and so forth. It's self-reported data, not audited data, but we've been doing that since 2014. So we have some internal, as it were, trend data. So we could take a look at a 3-year period, the size of the membership, historical performance data, and so forth. So that's the basis on which we projected that impact. And I think for us, and I think it's a challenge that we've talked about throughout today's session, which is, networks are about creating that connectivity and that wider amplification, to have impact. And sometimes it's hard to connect what you're doing at network level with the ultimate change you're trying to make on the ground. So we are really trying to articulate that we're trying to have real world impact for young people. And I guess we all know that jobs is a key indicator, and that the connectivity and all the stuff that Vicky was talking about how you stimulate all of that is linked to those real world outcomes.
Thank you, Anita. Are there any other questions? Please don't be shy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your global event coming up next month? That's in a few weeks. Who is going to be there? What's happening? Can you give us a sneak peek of your policy framework?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, our global summit is taking place in Nairobi from the 8th to the 10th of October. We're holding it at the Kenyan School of Monetary Studies. We're being supported by our 2 brilliant members in Kenya to run the event. So they are Somo Africa and Kapie. As I've mentioned, the event brings our whole network together. So majority of our members will be there, including Sarah, whose face I can see on the screen, and many of our funders and supporters and expert speakers. So we're really spending 3 days together to talk about key issues, challenges. It's very interactive, member-led sessions, and then there is also a number of local visits to see entrepreneurship in action. So Obviously, being based in East Africa, there is a natural focus on entrepreneurship in Africa, and particularly the East African region. So there'll be lots of talk around that. Anita, I don't know if you want to mention any of our strategic partners and key speakers that are going to be there.
Sure. I think maybe in the theme of what we're trying to do throughout YEPA and in this session is obviously for all networks, you have your members and you need to keep them engaged and provide value and so forth. And the summit will absolutely do that. But we're also bringing in key external speakers. So, for example, we've got a panel on innovative finance. So how do we start to look at different ways of cracking that finance problem? We're bringing in a key speaker from the youth strand of the African Development Bank, because, of course, they're a big multilateral working in this space. So wanting to start connecting key actors in that ecosystem so that while we provide that unique benefit for our members, we're bringing that wider benefit, and also helping people to hear from the ground up what are those challenges and so forth. So bringing a lot of finance, a lot of stuff from that social and green and climate, because it really is one of the areas that there's a huge level of interest from young entrepreneurs, as well as that kind of global priority. And we've had a previous session on that at YEPA. In terms of the policy framework, so I think, David, we actually interviewed you and your team for that. We're doing it jointly with the Global Entrepreneurship Network. And these things always go to the wire in terms of being finalized, but broadly speaking, it sets out the need to have wider enabling policy frameworks that that help entrepreneurs, that they're not just isolated, reflect some of the key opportunities and challenges, and then looks across different thematic areas. I think it ends up being about 50 policy recommendations that will address some of the points that have been raised today, including, I don't think we talked today so much about regulatory barriers, but it covers all of that. And just to pick up on another point that's come up in our discussion is we're really trying, there are a number of networks that work on entrepreneurship globally. We have a particular focus on underserved and youth. Others have different areas of expertise and so forth. So we're trying to collaborate more with other networks as well, not in a kind of structural way to have a network of networks, but recognizing that we're all ultimately, aiming for the same thing. And if you've got different competencies that you can bring together, that will help us to, to further accelerate impact. But it's going to be a great event. So if any of you have teams in Nairobi, we'd love to see you there.
Great, thank you. So there have been a few comments in the chat recognizing the work around diversity that you're doing, and some congratulations for that. And we've got Alina with her hand up, so we'll pass the microphone over to her.
Yes, thank you, and really happy to see all of those wonderful initiatives. I wanted to ask, how do you manage to connect with the education world through all of your initiatives? Because obviously the education world has a lot of young entrepreneurs, and so how you can also drive change through this network. I saw you already did some pieces of work, but I wanted to understand better how you connect through the education, and so universities and so high school.
Maybe I'll pick that up. So at a global kind of network orchestrator level, it's not a particular focus for us, although it will come up as one of the thematic areas in that policy framework. But our members on the ground, once they're a little bit more mature and they have their core programming, in hand, they do start to influence. And one area of influence is the education sector, and the other is the kind of government and regulatory sector. So I think the two areas where there's a lot of work, and I see this in our members in Europe as well as in other places, is I suppose more in the secondary education level, and some of the initiatives that we've been hearing about today, either to deliver direct programs as kind of a proof of concept, or to start collaborating with local authorities or others to do that. And precisely the point, which is it starts with mindset and the sense that this is an opportunity area before it then turns into some of the more practical business support you need when you start a business. And, in huge parts of the world, we've talked today about the gap between aspiration and actual action on businesses. But you see in other parts of the world that literally there are not enough jobs in existing firms or government entities. And if there aren't more entrepreneurs, you're just not going to have enough employment. So it starts with that mindset. The other area that a lot of members work in is the TVET sector, the technical and vocational training sector. And I think there's two issues that they try to tackle there. One is the actual technical training modern and relevant to what's going on in the world? But more importantly, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are trained in the technical skills, but since a lot of them will be sole traders, they also, or start off as sole traders, they also need the skills in, you know, how do you run a business as, you know, a plumber or whatever the technical skill might be. So those are the two areas where on the ground our members are doing more. And I think as we lean more into that influence and advocacy space, I think that's going to become a greater priority for us at YBI Global as well.
Okay, thank you. Because I have been, I didn't present myself, sorry. I have been a student entrepreneur since I'm 17, and I finished my studies just 1 year ago. And I founded my business because I saw there was a lot to do in student entrepreneurship, so including youth, and that actually there's a real need of change throughout the university's curriculum and also how we value student entrepreneurship. And so I'd be also interested to speak a bit more with you because like of what we're doing on my side with my business Euron, so engaged in youth entrepreneurship. But I wanted to say it's my first time in this workshop, and I'm really impressed and really happy to see all of these initiatives that helps converging, because something I saw, so I'm from France, and I saw there's a lot of initiatives for entrepreneurship and youth entrepreneurship, and there's a real need to like converge and to meet and to see how we can also scale on that topic. So thanks for building all of this.
Great, thank you. Thank you for joining us and for contributing as well. There's one question that we'll probably use to close the session. It's in the chat from Lucia, and she's asking about young students joining the network. Can students join the network with the student associations? Maybe just a response on how student entrepreneurs can get engaged.
We recommend that any young entrepreneurs connect with YBI members within their countries. We have that model because we know that it's our members who are based in countries who know the local context who are best placed to support young entrepreneurs. So whilst we are working with our member organisations to share learnings and develop new solutions, at the local level, the way to get involved is to get in touch with the YBI member organisation in your local country. You don't have to start up a new organisation or be part of a particular student association. We have a list of organisations that are already part of the YBI network and who are offering direct support to young entrepreneurs like yourself.
Just if there are student associations that want to join, do you just want to explain how they do that?
Yeah. So we have a page on our website which includes information about joining YBI. We look for organisations that are social purpose organisations supporting young entrepreneurs aged 18 to 35 that have been in existence for at least 3 years. And the process is you get in touch with myself and my colleagues in the membership team. We explain a bit more detail what YBI membership is and what it involves and all the various benefits. And then there's a simple application form to become part of the network. So I'll put a link in the chat in a moment for anyone who might know an organisation who you think could join the network.
Well, very good. Thank you very much to both of you, Victoria and Anita. We know that you're very busy these days putting the polish on the policy framework and also getting ready for the global event in just a few weeks. So we appreciate that you took your time out from those activities to join us today. I think that was a really nice session, lots of ideas. And just to reiterate, you know, Victoria just put a link into the website, and there are other materials and reports on the website that you might be interested. So I would encourage you to go check that out. So we'll wrap it up. Thanks again. And we're going to go into our breakout groups now. And the way it's going to work is we're going to split into 2. And each group has got a discussant that will help lead the discussion. And this is an opportunity to ask questions to each other and to share about what's happening in your countries. And so Helen is working behind the scenes to get this all set up. And in a few moments, she's going to push a button and we will go into our breakout rooms. And we can talk for about 25 or 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about what we learned today, and then we'll look ahead to the next steps. So without further ado, we can go into our groups. So see you in a moment. Hello, hello. It seems that we all made it into room number two. Room number two. I'm looking for Kirsten. She is going to be helping us with the discussion today. There you are. I see you on the screen. So we are 13 people. So what I propose is that we get started with just a very quick introduction so that we know who each other is. So just very quickly, if you could share your name, where you're from, what you're associated with, where you work, etc., and the country as well. Just very quick, 30 seconds. I will call on you in the order on my screen. Kirsten, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Kerstin Heuer. I'm the founder of Futurepreneur in Germany. I'm sitting in Hamburg and working with Futurepreneur since 2012.
Great. Alina. Are you there, Alina? We skip to Giuseppe.
Hi. Morning, everybody. I'm Giuseppe Negro. I'm working for the Ministry of Enterprises in Italy. And actually, I moved, to another office of the same minister, recently, and with a new project called House of Made in Italy, which have to give support to enterprises, also for startup. So, but it is started, and it's going to start in these weeks.
Great. Well, it's nice to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Cornelia.
Hello, I'm Cornelia Cross. I'm working at DG Employment, Social Affairs, and Inclusion, and in the unit dealing with social and inclusive entrepreneurship. And I'm sitting in Brussels.
Very good. Your camera seems to be not working, but for those of you who are here at the very beginning, Cornelia was our first speaker welcoming today. Next, we have Stratos. Are you there, Stratos? Maybe not. We'll skip to Guzman.
Hello, everybody. My name is Guzman Garcia. I'm working for the Spanish Ministry of Labor and Social Economy, dealing with social economy and corporate social responsibility, but also with inclusive entrepreneurship issues.
Nice to see you today. Lucia.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lucia. I come from Rome, Italy, but now I'm in Brussels because I'm working with Junior Enterprises Europe. That is the umbrella organization of junior enterprises that are present in more than 16 countries in Europe, and we are a network of 34,000 students, higher education students.
Very good. Simona.
Is it me, David?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So hello, everyone again. As you may have heard before, my name is Simone, and I am Policy Officer at Reuse, the European network of social enterprises active in the circular economy, and I am based in Brussels.
Great. Toby.
Hi, everybody. I'm Toby from Euclid Network, European Social Enterprise Network. We have around 50 members representing national social enterprise support organizations and other intermediaries. We're based in The Hague in the Netherlands, but I'm based in Brussels.
Very good. And Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Cooney. I am Professor of Entrepreneurship at Technological University Dublin in Ireland. And as mentioned earlier, I'm about to launch an initiative targeted marginalised youth across the major cities in Ireland. And yeah, enjoying the conversation so far. Thank you.
Very good. So the idea is that we've got a bit of a free-flowing discussion anticipated. So don't be shy to ask questions, share your experiences, respond to questions. We're going to start with Kirsten to get the ball rolling. How do we start, Kirsten?
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really interesting to follow all the discussions. So now later on now, I want to put in a pulse to think a little different, maybe. We discussed why the young entrepreneurs need networks. I would like to put it vice versa and to discuss what I think that the network is the whole society and that we as a society need young entrepreneurs. And what does it mean? So I'm the founder of Futurepreneur, and I think that we need, we need people that innovate and roll up their sleeves and create and found. And it's important to set a strong impetus for this. And there we need the whole society. So what does it need to awaken the drive and the entrepreneurial spirit in an early stage to put the students to entrepreneurs. So we work in a really early stage to foster entrepreneurial mindset. And I think it's really important to put in the networks really there to foster the mindset. So what do we do? I think that the young people have a great desire for real experience and real life when they're at school. So we use the energy that they have and to put it together with real life to foster the entrepreneurial mindset. And there we do need as much network as possible to deliver emotional action-based learning in real life and to foster the education for entrepreneurship and to get them into action. And that works. So we have project weeks where the students develop 25 ideas, everyone, sustainable business ideas. They write a mini business plan and launch a product, and then they go out. So they have the real experience. And there we do need as much network as possible. We need the schools that they deliver their rooms. We need founders as role models. We need markets where they can sell, and we need as much people as possible to get them to foster the mindset. So that I would like to change the view on the network, to put the network first, and then we will have founders later on.
Great. I mean, could you tell us a little bit about how you're working with schools? We've talked a bit about this already, but I'm wondering how your approach is, because you just mentioned that you're trying to foster mindsets and working with young people and projects and developing their ideas, but how do you actually get engaged with the schools?
We are in cooperation with a lot of schools, and we offer them project weeks, and then we take the students out of the school to other locations. There we need the network already to put them to other locations. Then we are the network. We are not the teachers, but we are people from business, coaches, and we work with them for 1 week. And within this week, we foster creativity. We show them what they're able to do all over what they learn at school. We have role models in the project, so they see how that there are people that have fun to create own ideas. And then is the main key for us that everybody develops 25 ideas. They see that the ideas, they are just everywhere. And then they have 1 day to prepare their own idea, and they have a strong motivation because it's their own idea. And then we go out with them into the town. So they have real clients, and they have real talk, and they have real money, their first real own money, and they have real experience. And this is really, strong emotional learning that will take them further on. So then they are awake. It's a wake up call, kind of a wake up call. Yeah.
Good. I mean, this is sort of intended to be open, so anyone feel free to come in at any point. Otherwise, I'll just keep rolling on with my questions. But I mean, Kirsten, I wanted to go back to some of the questions that Tom asked at the outset of our session today, and he was asking about resources, and he was asking about underserved. Well, underserved is the term I'm using, but sort of more disadvantaged youth. I don't know if you have any observations based on your experience on differences in needs, differences in what they can contribute. I don't know. Do you have any reflections?
To who contribute?
In the sense of if you're working with young people in schools, certainly there are different profiles of young people. You're going to have young people that are very well placed academically. They do very well in their studies. They've got a nice family situation, but not everybody has that situation.
No, we are everywhere. We are there where they have not the family that helps them. They are in Brennpunkt, the schools that have special needs more. And we show them that they already have their own network, even though they have not the money. So they don't get any money of us, but they realize that they have a network and that they have the things they need to start. So they are not privileged at all.
Yeah, and to come back to your question at the beginning, society needs these young people, our networks need these young people. Is it hard to convince them to get engaged? Or is it easy?
No, it's easy, because if you tell them, but the need is so strong. So if you ask someone to support these young students, it's easy. So the role models, they come and they love to come, and they come several times because they get back so much with the questions of the students. We don't pay for the locations. We really want to put in a lot of actors in the town. So we want to that the students get the feeling the whole town wants them to start something, and they have the supporters all over the town. No, it's not that hard.
And how far do you reach geographically speaking? How far does your activity go, your initiative, Futurepreneur? Is it everywhere in the country, or is it in one region?
No, we started in Hamburg. We are in different regions. We are in Hanover, we are in Bremen, we are in other countries too. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. Tom has got his hand raised. Tom.
Thanks, David. I suppose a lot of the discussion right now is around schools and about the education system and about how we work with young people through those channels, right? Which is great, is it? That's a very important part of building youth entrepreneurship. I suppose my question and what I'm trying to tease out in my head is more regarding kind of, let's say, 24 to 30-year-olds who are what academics might call NEETs, not in entrepreneurship education or training. And, frequently they can come from disadvantaged backgrounds, or even backgrounds where they might have criminal records. They might belong to refugee or Roma communities. And attracting funding for those type of target communities, in my experience, is much more difficult than if I go looking for money for, university students who are building entrepreneurial, we're building an entrepreneurial program around university students. Like, there's no problem, right? People want to get associated with that. You go look for money for, students who've been involved in the criminal justice system. It's a whole lot harder, because people don't want to associate their brand name with, with criminal activity or past criminal activity. They don't want to associate their brand name with Roma, or refugees might be a little simpler, right? So, there is a difference between how we work with people from those communities versus the mainstream, well-educated, young people. And I suppose that's where my question was coming from, David, originally. I want to create something that's sustainable. I'm going to get funding for a 1.5-year program. It's not confirmed yet, but it's likely, right? And I want to build a program that lasts, not one that in a 1.5 years we all kind of pat ourselves in the back and go home. How do we build something sustainable? And that needs resources, right? And it also needs networks. And I'm wondering, I cannot see this young population from these disadvantaged backgrounds, and maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I think it's a big ask for them to set up their own network and self-sustain the initiative afterwards. I think we got to piggyback, as I mentioned earlier, with someone, some organization, to ensure that it's sustainable once the initial funding is done. And then how do we get the funding to keep it going? So what I'm trying to tease out in my head is how do we keep it going? You know, and I fully buy into the network, and I think this is a great discussion. But I want it to be more than a 1.5-year project.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I see where you're going with this. I think Guzman's got his hand raised, but Simone might also have some thoughts to share based on his experience. We'll go to Guzman first.
No, I didn't raise my hand.
Mistake.
I just clapped the intervention of my Irish colleague. I'm completely with him in this analysis.
Okay, very good. So we'll pass to Simone then.
Thank you. Yeah, no expert whatsoever on the Irish situation, but what you shared, Tom, related to a point that I raised earlier, where we have good examples at EU levels of operational grants that are given to networks that are about social entrepreneurship. They don't rely on profit maximization, but on social and environmental impact. Therefore, they also contribute to the collective interest, but that doesn't seem to be the case at the national level. And it's a huge lack. We also see it with our members that do not necessarily just work with young people that are defined as needs, but also different underrepresented groups, people that in general are left at the margins of the labor market. So it relates to that. And I was also curious to hear from you if you feel, based on your experience, that the initiatives under the European Social Fund have enough visibility in Ireland, because sometimes it also seems that there could be great initiatives at the EU level, but then national interventions, governments might not give them enough visibility at the local level. So there might even be the money. Sometimes it's not enough, or it's allocated under specific requirements. It doesn't allow to support all kind of projects. But what you mentioned seems to be an initiative that largely falls under the scope of the European Social Fund. So I'm curious to hear from you if you think these initiatives are disseminated enough by the Irish government.
Yeah, thank you so much, Simone. Great points. And I suppose two things. One is that the emphasis of my prior work has been with other disadvantaged communities or minority communities, underrepresented communities, whichever term we wish to use. I've done particularly a lot of work with persons with disabilities. And so in this area of marginalized youth, this is the first time that I've kind of been highly active in it. I've only done pilot programs in the past. So I'm not sure about where the funds are at. My knowledge of the Irish funding system is that currently the European social funds are channeled into an organization in Ireland called PUBL, and then they disseminate it out to, we've got 49 local development organizations who then they budget it out to them, who run employment programs for a variety of people who are struggling with labour market activation. And I suspect that to have any success, I'm going to need to go through that network of local development organizations and look at the funding that they receive and where they get it from. If I'm to tease out, future funding, as you suggest, and then you're quite right, there's got to be money there somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, if I can just come back in.
Yeah.
Toby's got his hand raised, but I had another idea to put on the table for anybody to pick up. But I'm thinking about this discussion, and the question that came into my head was, if you build it, will they come? Sort of a supply and demand issue. If we supply them with a network and an infrastructure, will they use it? And I think that's a critical question if you're thinking about the sustainability. And it harks back to what Kirsten was saying at the beginning. It seems that in her experience, it's not such a challenge, but I wonder if it might be a challenge for these marginalized groups. But I'll just put it out there, and I'll pass the microphone over to Toby.
No, thank you. Yeah, I mean, if you build it, will they come? That's a good question. And then with EU funding, which is always a question of, there's a lot of it around, and people don't like to access it or can't access it because it's usually quite difficult. So I guess it's not just about provision; it's also about making sure that there's the support and also the networks to actually help people access funding. So yeah, I'm not sure about if the supply will create demand, but perhaps to a certain extent. But I was just going to come back on the topic of in Ireland, the local development agencies. We have a member, Social Enterprise Republic of Ireland. And of course, now Ireland has their new policy on social entrepreneurship launched quite recently. And I think one of the big challenges which they've been fighting with or trying to change is that actually social entrepreneurship and social enterprises are quite excluded from these agencies, and they're stuck in rural development, not in actual enterprise. So when it comes to Ireland, I think it could be quite difficult in a sense to bring this entrepreneurship and the social dimension. It seems to be quite difficult, which is a real shame. And I think in countries such as Poland, the National Investment Bank, which is using ESF money to lend money to social enterprises, is perhaps doing something a bit differently, but is again because of the way it's structured. So I think in Ireland, you might have an uphill battle, but I wish you the best of luck. But I think there's also the other networks in Ireland who are trying to do something about this. So hopefully there is an opportunity to bring different people together to try and create this change.
Yeah, Toby, I know the people in Surrey quite well, and I would interact with them. And you're quite right. What's extraordinary in Ireland is that social enterprise sits within the Department of Community Development and Rural Affairs, and the Department of Enterprise simply don't want to know. And they're quite clear about that. And you're really struggling to understand why social enterprise can't be within the Department of Enterprise. Yeah, I'll reach out to them because I think that's a good thought, and I know the people in there quite well. David, coming back to the question around traction of the network, I suppose one of the things I was wondering about, instead of building a network for young entrepreneurs, and particularly I'm thinking of the needs, if we use that expression for the moment, are they better off in the chambers of commerce or in the Small Firms Association or in the more established networks where they can become mainstreamed and maybe receive support from experienced business people rather than continuing to be the minority in some marginal youth entrepreneurship group?
I think that's a very critical question, because if you build a network that is focused on, let's say, a narrow group for the time being, if it's for a narrow group and you've got this collection of entrepreneurs from this narrow group, there are benefits and risks to that. The benefit is that it might be quite easy to build because you might find that there's a more natural trust type of relationship between the people, and they would be more open and build strong relationships among them quite quickly because of their similarities. Probably they face similar challenges. So if you want to design workshops and other activities for them, you can probably do a good job of doing something quite targeted that meets their needs. The downside is that, in a sense, there is a risk that you might be reinforcing their disadvantage by not bridging them in to the wider community effectively. So I think that's something that you always need to keep in mind. And we've seen different examples today where there are efforts to bring in speakers and coaches and mentors from other organizations. That's one approach. The other wrinkle on that I think about, and I don't have a good solution, is the question that I asked of Ava at the beginning. You know, you're only a young entrepreneur for so long until you become a middle-aged entrepreneur. And so I do wonder about building networks around the identity of being young, because it is finite. So what happens if you're no longer young? Are you kicked out of the club? Does the network evolve? Do they go on to do something else? Those are also important questions to consider. But you know, we've had different experiences, and I see that Lucia's got her hand raised, so maybe she's got ideas to complement.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about European fundings that someone mentioned before, because we were looking for them, and actually the main problem with them is actually how to request for grants, how to apply for them, and all these things about aero projectations that usually are explained in some programs that you have to pay for, in some masters that you have to pay for. So I think that social enterprises have to be like very lucky to find someone that teaches them how to apply for these grants, because if they have not the right network to do that, they're not be able to have an access to this actual funding. And also, I think that another problem that we saw with some grants from a specific institution is that they're made for more activism than an actual plan. Just because for social topics, for a social thing, just like Roma that someone mentioned before, or just like to integrate the people that are in a bad situation from a social point of view, is very difficult to find some grants that have as like a concrete project that can last for many years. Instead, the project that we found that applied for these grants were more into, just awareness or activism. I mean, they are important things, but in order to, integrate disability person or Roma or all these type of categories, we need to build concrete projects and also to integrate them with the society, and not to make specific programs for them, because they will remain in their bubble. So
Yeah, thanks, Lucia. I think that echoes nicely with what I was trying to say, is that when we're building very targeted networks, there's a risk of reinforcing that separation, which is probably counterproductive when we're looking at the big picture of what we're trying to do. So we're going to go back into the main room in a few moments. So I thank you all for your questions. That was an interesting discussion. I'll try to do a quick summary, but Kirsten, I'll probably turn to you to see if you have a quick remark, if that's okay.
Yeah, I was just wanted to give the impulse to think a little wider and to just not to look who can be the network, but to maybe try who wants to be the network and who comes up, even if there are small target groups there are people. My experience is that there are people who want to support them where I would never have looked after them.
Okay, that's a good final word, and we'll go back shortly to the main room to wrap up and look at the next steps. So thanks again, and I'll see you on the other side. Sorry, I was on mute. We're just waiting for the other group to jump in. They should be here in a few seconds. So here we are. I think everybody's returned from the breakout rooms. So we hope that you had a nice discussion. Our room was quite lively. We covered a few issues. We started with Kirsten, who posed a provocative question, which was, why are we thinking about building young networks for young entrepreneurs and what we can help them with? Why shouldn't we turn it around and say, well, young people have so much to offer to society and to our networks, and put more of a positive spin on it. So that was quite a nice way to look at it. And then we had a discussion around, one of the main challenges I think that these types of networks face, and that's around sustainability. How do you get a network initiative going, and how do you sustain it over time? And we had a number of different people sharing their experiences and different ideas. There was some discussion about partnerships with other organizations, trying to access public funding, even EU funds. And so I think all of those are quite important. And Kirsten started by talking about her partnerships with schools. And so this can also help get you into a sustainable type of mode. I don't know, Kirsten, if you have any additional thoughts you want to share. Putting you on the spot. You're on mute. You're on mute. No, it sounds good. Okay, so we'll pass it over to the other room. I don't know if there's someone, Helen or Julian, that wants to do a quick report back.
I will do the rapporteur, but under the supervision of Ruben and Helen, so don't hesitate to add. Well, it was also a nice discussion. First observation, and I think it was shared by almost all participants, is that networks are indeed important and networks are indeed impactful. And we had several testimonies on that, and Elena, could also share her own experience that she wouldn't have done all the things she could achieve without support and networking. So networks do matter a lot. That's the point. The second point that came up was that yes, we should, as a new group, David, we should take young people seriously, and when they take the floor, to listen to them, and it can give good results. And sometimes the mere fact that you listen to by high-level people or high-level people, is really motivational for young people. So that's one. But also we should also have a look to those young people that are not in high-quality university, that have other path, and these are also being have to be listened to and supported. This is very important. Then came from Johannes an important recall, is that when you have a network, you really have to design it properly. You have to know what is your target group, what do you want to achieve, what are the necessities of this target group. Like if you want really to inspire young people, Johannes told us that role models above 30 is not really optimal anymore. So David, I'm afraid that you and we cannot be a role model anymore. If it is well, I don't think it would be the case, but in any case, the door is closed for us. So that's a point. And then about again this topic of inclusion, how could we reach all the profiles, including the less typical one, or the under, or the a bit no privileged one? Well, we could work with the non-profit sector, but also being aware that setting up a business is already a challenge. Setting up a social business is a greater challenge. So be prudent, be sustainable first, and yes, and don't exploit yourself. You should get a salary when you start a business. Probably not the first month, but after a while, you have to earn, to make a living with the business. I stop here, and it was nice.
Thank you very much, Julian. We've got 2 minutes before the hour, which means that I have just enough time to get a few concluding points in about the upcoming events and next steps for the YEPA. So first of all, as per our usual practice, the discussion note will be updated to add in some of the examples and cases we looked at in the panel discussions and presentations, and we'll also pick up some of the good remarks and discussion that we had in our breakout rooms and throughout the event today. So that will be updated and shared probably within the next couple of weeks. There'll also be a recording of this webinar up on the YEPA website. Feel free to re-watch it or share with your colleagues and friends. And on that point, we had different workshops for the different groups in this set of webinars. The other groups looked at AI and young entrepreneurs in AI and how that impacts policy support. And the other group had a session on role models. So if you're interested in that, those materials will be on the website very shortly. Point number 2, you've heard at the outset, there are some side events. If you are interested in organizing a YEPA activity in your country, please be in touch and we can see how we can help you out with that. And on that note, again, there's an in-person event in YEPA. You're all invited to come. I think it's on the 12 and 13 as part of the Entrepreneurship Summit. So be in touch if you want to learn more about that. And then finally, we've got 2 more online workshops in our program, plus another in-person event, probably in Brussels in the 2025. So we can look forward to that. And of course, we'll be communicating details and timing for those upcoming events very shortly. Just one last word is that this is the end of workshop 4. So that means that we're going to shuffle the groups again so that you have the opportunity to meet more colleagues in different countries. So it was nice to see all of you together, and we'll see you in a different group for the next webinar. So just once again, thanks to all of the contributors today, the panelists, the moderators, the presenters, and of course, everyone for their questions and discussions. It was a really fun session. I enjoyed it, and it was great to learn about the different elements of networks and to see how these are implemented in practice in different formats. So I enjoyed it. I'm going to stop. Thanks very much. I wish you all a wonderful afternoon, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.